What is going on, everyone? My name's Boit, and I'm back with some Age of Mythology, the tier list action. Yes, everyone's favorite tier list action. We've got new numbers. We've got new information. We've got new ideas. We've seen a whole bunch of games. The numbers have been crunched, and the information is our hands to make a solid decision about what indeed is the case in Age of Mythology. But before we go into the numbers, I want to make the first thing known very clearly. The first point needs to be made clearly that while there is a correlation between high win rate and a high tier list setting, it's not necessarily causation of that fact. So we got to be a little bit careful once we see all of the numbers as to what decision we actually make. But without further ado, we've got the spreadsheet. This is from Banana Tea, and he's got all of the stuff right here. So the most important thing to look at in terms of this part of the spreadsheet, we're going to be looking at a different one. But the most important thing to look at here is that inside of the Champions League playoffs, the most popular god was Loki. This is the playoffs. This is when people are trying to win as hard as they possibly can. People were picking Loki the most towards the end of this tournament. Now, that might be because certain individuals who were playing Loki made it further in the playoff stage. It might not actually be an overall thing, but you also see that Hades is well and truly up there, and same with Uranus. So all of these gods have been played quite a bit, whereas like other gods you might feel are a little bit more successful, a little bit more strong, like Odin, Ra, a little bit further down on that pick list, Zeus as well. And as well as if we come over and we take a look at the Challengers League playoffs, something very, very different is seen. We see a whole bunch of Zeus being played. Hades is very high on the list there. Loki not nearly as high. Uranus still pretty high. So there's a couple of numbers there that don't quite match up, so to speak. So what will be important here is taking a look at this next tab over here, the totals. And this is the big thing, the big reveal is the win percent of these gods through the tournament. As we can see, a very, very interesting stat is the pick rate. The pick rate is possibly more important to the actual god's overall strength than the actual win percentage. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's the case. Because a top player is going to be picking the god they feel gives them the best chance to win. Whether or not they win or not with that god, that might be the case. That it is actually weaker than they think, but maybe not. Maybe it was just unlucky, not a big enough sample size of games. But it does seem to be very, very clear that Uranus here is the most popular god. So we're going to have to keep that in mind when we actually take a look at the win percentage of certain gods in the tournament. So Odin is also really far up there. Hades also really far up there. And then you jump a significant downturn to the Loki, Zeus's, and another significant downturn to the Ra, Kronos, and then obviously the rest of the gods down here not being picked all too much. So total wins, 20% of the wins here, the wins share. We have Hades and Odin and Uranus all sitting up at the top here. And everything else. But this is where things get a bit funny. And I'm not sure exactly how to unpack this information here. I don't know how to unpack this information. Why? As I just can't stop coughing. But this here shows not only am I totally right that Gaia is an absolutely busted god with a 50% win rate. And a 10 game pick rate. But all the Greeks are busted. Now, we got to take this information with a grain of salt. Hades was picked near the top, 15.5. So I feel like we can take this number very, very seriously and say Hades is one of the best gods, if not the best god right now. And I think that's going to be sitting in a place where we agree. Zeus here with a 10.3% pick rate, 11.9% tournament win share, and a 51% or nearly 52% win rate here. I think we can take that with a fairly strong position. We can say Zeus, probably a pretty strong god. Poseidon, however, with a 4.8% tourney win share, I think this god here, we have to take this with a grain of salt. Maybe Poseidon isn't as strong as it's saying here with the win percent. And that's the same here with Gaia. That's the same here with Set. Set having a 46.2% win rate over the course of the tournament is a surprise to me. I would have assumed he would have been functioning much worse than that. But Set did have a lot of specific games where Set was playing against Odin players. People were picking Set against the Norses and finding wins there, as Set is very good against Norse, which is also why we're seeing Odin as far down as here. I'm not sure if we see a matchup thing here anywhere. No, I don't think we see a matchup anywhere here, but I imagine we'd see that the Odin win rate is going to go significantly further up if it's Odin versus, say, the Greeks, or Odin versus, say, Ra, or Isis even, or Uranus, as we see that the most popular god here, holy bad win rate. The most popular god here has got a 35.9% win rate over this tournament. That has to knock Uranus down a peg. You have to be saying here, maybe Uranus isn't actually as strong as people are saying it is. Those are the stats. I'm going to put these stats over here, and we're going to start talking about exactly where we put everyone. So we're going to start from who I think is currently the worst god in the game. Based on the stats, based on the pick rate, I think the worst god in the game is Kronos. I've said it. There it is. That might be a surprise. It might not. Why is Kronos the worst god in the game? Kronos gets picked a ton and loses. That's why. People will pick Kronos and with the express purpose of thinking that they can find an advantage. They find the advantage and then they lose. Because Kronos is the worst god in the game. So, who follows Kronos then? Do we put Uranus after Kronos because Uranus is sitting at 35.9% win rate with a... Not really. He's got a 14.9% tourney win share. So he does get wins. But it's not a lot of wins. So I'm not going to put him all the way down next to Kronos because he's so low. So the next lowest one here is Thor. Thor, very, very low pick rate, 2.4%. Very, very low win rate at 42.2% and a 2.2% tournament win share percent. Because Thor is sitting so low on the pick rate and so low on the win rate, I have to think that Thor has got to be down here in the depths with Kronos. That has to be the case. It simply has to be the case. The next part is we're looking at Odin here with a 43.1% win rate, but a crazy high 17.6% win rate. So I think that Uranus and Odin, they have to be considered fairly similar in terms of their where they're sitting in this tier list. Because they haven't had success, but they do get picked a lot. So while I personally think that Odin is really strong, I also personally think that Uranus is really strong. This is what the stats are saying. So this is where we're going to pop them. We're going to pop them in this B tier with the, maybe we're going to move them up, maybe we're going to move them down, depending on where we put everything else. After this, we've got Isis, Loki, Ra, all sitting in that 44% win rate column. But Loki has picked a ton more than Isis and Ra. So he's been tested a lot more than they have. So I'm willing here to put Loki above Isis and Ra. And because I'm not sure I can put Loki below Uranus and Odin, given the high pick rate and the higher win percentage. It's a significant uptick for Loki. So I have to start thinking that Loki is sitting above these gods here. But I can't put Ra and Isis above Uranus and Odin because the pick rate is so low. I mean, it's a difference of... Well, the win rate difference is at like a 10%, but it's just so low that you just haven't seen them tested. So at best, Isis and Ra have to kind of go here. And then we get Set. Set being picked 3.5% of the time with a 46% pick rate. He's kind of, I don't know. He almost kind of goes here. I think the fact that the pick rate is so low here for the Egyptians is simply just because there wasn't that many Egyptian players. Is that because Egyptian is weak? Maybe. But do you put this god here next to the Uranus Odin pick rate versus win rate? Or what? Or do you put it below here into this column? Or do you put this above here? It is very well, it could be very well the case that Set does in fact sit above Uranus and Odin, but Ra and Isis sit below them due to the pick rate, win rate differential. Set actually picked significantly less than Ra and Isis though, so he hasn't been tested. So I'm going to go ahead and put him here with the Set god sitting above Ra and Isis to some degree. My intuition says that Ra should sit here, Set should sit here, and Isis can sit below Set a little bit. And we could actually start thinking about putting these gods down here in the F tier of don't pick them. Set sitting in the D tier here of a little bit better, and Ra sitting in the C tier. But this would be me going against the stats, so to speak, just because I feel like Ra is a stronger god that overall than these two. But then again, Ra is losing quite a bit to Norse, and Set isn't. Set is also, like Ra's also losing to Greek. Ra's also losing to Norse. Or Set's not. Ra is kind of beating Atlantean though. I don't know if Set's beating Atlantean or not. So it gets a little bit difficult. So I'm going to actually put them in the same tier. I think that's fair. We're going to put them in the same tier. All right. So the next one is Gaia. What do you do with Gaia? Clearly, Gaia's not as bad as people think. Clearly, that's the case. She got picked very, 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 very minusculely, but she got picked with a very, very certain intention. And she got a 50% win rate, which means she won 5 games out of 10. And some of those games were players who have never picked Gaia before because they were trolling. Remember one game of Mr. Soup playing Gaia on Midgard. He doesn't play Gaia. He doesn't know. And he got absolutely trounced on. So, where do you actually put Gaia? High win rate, low pick rate. If that's the case, that's better than these Egyptian gods. Is it the case that Gaia should sit above these Egyptian gods? I don't know. I almost say that we have to put Gaia and Poseidon in the same tier because they're both sitting in a very similar situation. Yes, Poseidon's got 45 picks, significantly more than Gaia, and has a higher win rate than Gaia. So I guess you have to go ahead and say that Gaia goes below Poseidon. Okay. We can leave those at the bottom now, and we can very, very easily say Hades with a 15.5% pick rate, 58% win rate. He is clearly the best god in the game right now. Zeus on the next stand here, high pick rate, high win rate. He's got to be above Loki. Simply put, he has to be. They've got the same pick rate, basically, and Loki is sitting at 44%. Zeus is sitting at 51%. Now, that could be influenced by the fact that Zeus was picked more in Challengers League than in Champions League. And if the players were switched a little bit. Zeus picks might go down. There was a Zeus main in Challengers League who won. Eric won, which is definitely going to contribute to the high win rate of the Zeus. But if Zeus is winning, Zeus is winning. So, I mean, this tier list looks so weird to me right now. And now these two gods at the bottom are the hard ones to place, because I guess you have to put Gaia down a tier because of reasons. I almost want to say that we put these gods here with a huge tentative on exactly where they belong. Gaia going into the C tier feels weird to me. I think she's better than people think, but is she a C tier god? I don't know. Poseidon going into the B tier because of the ridiculous 53.3% win rate, and but only a 45 games. So only over 45 games is a low sample size. I'd love to see these gods getting picked an extra like 50 to 100 times to really have a better grasp on these stats. But if we were to go off the stats and we were to go off the games we saw, this is the feeling that I think is here. Now, Uranus and Odin, with such low win rates, they might even be... I don't think they can be below Ra and Set, because they just didn't get picked that much. This is what I'm going with. This is my tier list. You guys tell me what you would pick seeing these stats. I'll put the a link to this spreadsheet in the description box below. You guys can check it out. Let me know what you think the tier list should be. But this is what we've got at the moment. My head is, I didn't notice, my head is completely blocking the tier list. And there we go. If you guys enjoyed this one, please consider hitting the follow on the Twitch, or on the YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next game.